I built it and I was like, I'm going to build it on top of Redtail. All right. Because that's Brian obviously built Redtail. I'm going to call this a Yellowtail. And so I was like, you know what?
I see where we're going now.
That's a little bit too close to home. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be a little tongue in cheek and call it Hamachi. And so I presented it to the guy. Like, again, we were meeting on the regular, just like, whatever, cards and coffee or whatever.
Welcome to AI for Advisors with Mark Heynen and James Cantwell. Every week, Mark and James break down the latest in the world of wealth tech and AI, and occasionally bring in guests to spice things up. This is not investment advice and not professionally produced. I am not real and not yet sentient. Now let's get on with the show.
Welcome to episode 12 of AI for Advisors with myself, Mark Heynen, and James Cantwell. We are very excited today to have two guests on who are both at the early stages of their companies and both launching companies that are really creating important infrastructure, AI infrastructure in the back end for advisors. We have Max Klein, co-founder and CEO of Leah, which is working on enabling workflow automations using AI, and Mike Wilson, CEO of Hamachi.ai, which is enabling compliant email communication for advisors. And so we're excited to dig into sort of the infrastructure behind a lot of the front-end tools people are using and this emerging area of embedded AI. A lot of people, I was just at the Advise AI conference. By the way, great conference. I think they did an incredible job. And I found a lot of people were talking about, do I use this tool? Do I use that tool? For either an AI layer or a CRM or, even a note taker or an AI assistant. And ultimately, there's a different sort of world here that might emerge, which is that there's backend infrastructure that is compatible with a lot of tools that just empowers people to do a lot better work.
Mark, before we even get to the serious stuff, you were at Advise AI and it was in Vegas. Yeah. So how was the conference? I mean, forget the serious end of it. It's a conference in Vegas for a couple of days. So I'm surprised you're here and ready to go. But what was that event like for those that didn't attend, like myself?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. This is the second year they've done it. Did you guys go last year?
Yeah, I was there last year. Back when I was with Orion, I actually accepted an award for Orion Innovator of the Year for
congratulations.
An AI component that we embedded inside of Orion that generated natural language around an investment plan. So cool. This year I was back as the CEO of a small startup named Hamachi, but a little bit different perspective. It was amazing, to see how much that conference has grown in the course of 1 year. I mean,
how many people attend that thing? You guys have any idea?
I heard something like 1,500, which at first pass it sounded like a lot. And then I looked around the room; it was a good sized room. And one thing that was really cool, James, was that the people that were there were super engaged. You know, when you go to a conference and people are on their phones and stuff, and everyone's doing this and that, and they're drinking coffee in the back. Everyone was laser focused, which is super cool to see in an event like that. And it just is telling that the time is right for this type of innovation to hit.
Do you think it was really the content being so AI, obviously AI focused? I mean, was it the content, the speakers? What's driving that sort of engagement? Because you're right, it's not common at these events.
I think the people that were there are all in on AI. A lot of them are early adopters. And they know that this is game changing for wealth management and for financial planning. And so all the speakers are super talented individuals who've been in the game for a minute. And it's just people, because this is all kind of the Wild West of sorts, everyone wants to grab onto some truth, right? And understand what, where this market's going and try to find some like sanity in their choices. So like when Mark called out, like people are asking like, well, what tool should I use? Like it's still early days. Like people are trying to figure it out. I'm blessed to have like 3 incredible co-founders that we've been in the game for a long time. And so we believe, because of the relationships we have and because of the foundations that we've laid in this industry for many years that, we have that trust factor. We'll be here for a long time to come as well. But that's not to say that like some of these startup businesses that, our new entrants in the market are going to be incredible additions to like the Kitsys map, right?
Yeah.
Like they're doing incredible additions to WealthTech as well.
Well, I think it's a good segue because this is an interesting show because I think we've all been talking about AI note takers. It's kind of like the low hanging fruit. It's what everybody knows about moving into AI assistants. And now today with the two of you, right, we're going to talk a little bit more about your products and where you're solving and thinking about things from more of an infrastructure and some of the other workflows that maybe weren't the initial shiny workflows to address, but are critical to an organization. So, and sometimes with that, Mark, maybe want to get into some of the intros and we'll pivot.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Max.
I was going to say sometimes the way that I think about it is I don't want to detract from the, sometimes I hear the word shiny and it just sounds like it's all hat and no cattle, but there is a lot of substance to these things that you're talking about, James. But I think the other unifying thread is that they're very front office focused and they're not necessarily middle, back, and organization level. And I think that's where, I'm excited to learn more about what Mike's doing, but that's certainly our mentality and that value sort of trickles down to the front office, but also permeates different parts of the organization who might not have as easy access to so many shiny objects.
Yeah, I totally agree. I do want to say a couple more things about the show because I have like a lot of opinions about it. So first of all, I totally agree with Mike that like actually it's self-selected for people who are willing to spend the money to show up at a conference specifically about this. So if you're skeptical about whether AI has an impact, you're not showing up to the show. So everyone there was super engaged, willing to talk. I will say that I think the person who put it together, Brian Walheimer, I actually had dinner with him the first night. He actually doesn't even come from a financial advisor background. He had a really interesting background doing a lot of other things. I think he did an amazing job putting together good content, good speakers. I totally agree with you, Mike. I usually, when I go to shows, I sort of write off the content, the panels, and I'm like, this is all about networking and meeting people, and the real content is going to be through one-on-one private conversations.
Exactly.
That was not the case here at all. I mean, the people were really getting into whether it makes sense to build or buy AI, how to decide between vendors. People were laying out the process they use to vet AI vendors. So it was just gold. It was amazing. There was also this really fascinating thing that happened initially where I think Michael Kitsys mentioned, I didn't go to the first session. I was actually working on other work, but he mentioned apparently that he thinks AI is more of just a word processor at this point, doing meeting notes and good for content, but is not going to be good at much else. And Joel Bruckenheimer was very clear that he thought it could do a lot more. Sorry, Bruckenstein. Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, he said he thought it could clearly do a lot more and strongly disagree with that perspective. And so just seeing the different perspectives on what impact AI will have in the space in the next 2 years.
Did Joel and Mike have like a battle royale that like I missed out on? Because this sounds like a conversation I'd want to hear.
I know. Well, it wasn't explicit. It was sort of indirect. He was asking a question in a session, and he made very clear he disagreed quite strongly with the way Kitsys went out. I do feel like Kitsys often is a little bit skeptical of some of the implications of AI, and obviously his previous analysis that you should just add more people on your team rather than invest in other tools, just reflective of that. I think other people are a little more bullish on the impact of AI and that it's going to have a really significant impact. And actually, the fact people actually had case studies showing how it changed their practice in real life, I thought that was relatively new. That gentleman who was talking about saving 8,000 hours of meeting prep, that was really significant. It brought things together. So I totally agree with you, Mike. I hope they keep on growing it. I could see it actually eclipsing some of the other shows, to be completely honest.
I think Future Proof is making an entire theme of their next instantiation just AI.
Yeah, Citywide is just AI focused.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea because, frankly, the content is just so much better. I mean, I'm a little biased because it's my area, but I think it's just also it's what's happening right now. It's what everyone's, and I guess I came across a lot of RAs who were saying, I am being asked to choose a tool and I just don't know where to start. And so I need to go somewhere where I talk to a lot of people. It's going to save me an incredible amount of time. And I think a lot of people are in that situation now where it's time to actually choose, which I guess is a good pivot for us to talk about what you guys are doing, because hopefully they choose your tools. So yeah, why don't we get into it? And let's actually start, Max, with you, if you don't mind. So just to give everyone a bit of a background on your background, I understand you spent 7 years at Amazon as a product manager, building the data pipeline for Alexa. Right now, I'm going to ask Alexa to buy a Bugatti for James. This is what I always do to try to advice. So you built the customer data platform. Obviously, you have a lot of background in big data, and then also did strategy at Intel China, where I assume you were Huawei. You were sort of fluent Mandarin speaker in China. My wife lived in China for 5 years as a Midwestern white woman who spoke fluent Mandarin. I can appreciate that's an amazing experience. So good for you. Graduate from Cornell and, has been active as an entrepreneur in a roundtable. And so I guess I wanted to maybe dig in a little bit to your origin story, because obviously coming out of a large company like Amazon, you have a lot of opportunities, and you decided to jump in, A, to this wealth tech space, and B, jump into starting something new, right, in a space that is quite competitive. So I would love to hear more about the aha moment and how that came about.
Yeah, I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always like a challenge. And I like diving into a new environment and sort of picking it apart and figuring out what opportunities exist. So that's been a through line of my life, I think. But specifically with Leah and getting into the wide world of wealth management, a few years ago, I was involved with helping my family get a financial plan, which I didn't even know was called a financial plan at the time. And the process struck me as very slow and tedious, and especially the piece around compiling and making use of all the information and data that came from my family and moved into the four walls of this wealth management firm. And so that moment really, really stayed with me. And once this process actually bore itself out, my parents' stress level went from like 95% to like 3%. So I could really see the positive impact that great financial advice beyond just dealing with asset management and investments could really have. So that just never left me, and I couldn't silence that experience. Coming from Amazon, my focus the entire time was building the data infrastructure and APIs and workflows that make some of these incredible large-scale customer products work magically. And it seemed like there was a large appetite for that type of problem-solving mentality in wealth management. And so those factors all came together and led me to start Leah and start cranking away.
And why Leah specifically? What I understand it, the process of uploading documents, you want to make that easier, but how did you arrive at that specific solution set as being the right solution?
As I started to talk to advisors and then to leaders at growing wealth management firms, I was shocked by how much time is sunk between documents coming into the four walls of a firm and then data getting where it needs to go. And so I knew that doing something within that realm would make a big impact and would empower not just the front office, but also the firms as a whole to really just do more and serve their clients at a higher level. What I didn't know when I started out was that there's this whole new class of wealth management firms who many of them have raised outside capital, not all of them, but they're really trying to grow and become sort of lasting national brands in financial services. And that didn't really exist, 10 years ago beyond like the huge independent broker dealers. So there's a huge transformation happening, not just in terms of wealth management services, but also these companies trying to make the leap from being businesses to being enterprises. And I consider what we're doing to be an essential enabling component of that transformation.
It's really interesting. I was going to say here, let's pivot to Mike for a second. I want to bring you into this, Mike. So you have a long background like myself in the wealth management space. It looks like you've spent time, one, growing and selling advisory world. You've been at LPL. You've spent time at Orion. We already talked about your experience at Advise.ai a year ago, accepting that award. And now you're with a ridiculously stellar team of founders, which I'd love for you to tell us more about, starting Hamachi.ai. So we'd love to hear, what is Hamachi.ai, since it is new to the market, and tell us a little bit about how the four of you came together to start this.
All right, so I'll tell you really quickly on Hamachi.ai. It's a communication platform, and it's designed to power advisor, asset manager, and investors to have incredibly precise, compliant, and private conversations at scale. And the way that it all came about, James, is, well, first of all, Eric Clark, Brian McLaughlin, and I have been great personal friends and business partners for, looking at my calendar, better part of 25 years. Mustafa Basiri, our fourth partner.
And Mike, real quick, just in case not everybody knows, Eric Clark was former CEO of Orion. Brian
Correct.
McLaughlin was former CEO, founder of Redtail, now both owned. Well, now Redtail is owned by Orion. So two kind of giants in the industry who have some really well-known products. So I just want to make sure everybody listening knows those names. We do.
Thanks, James. And Mustafa Basiri, our fourth partner, he co-founded a business named Advisor, a financial planning solution software that was acquired by Orion, as was Redtail. Mustafa won the Wealthy for CTO of the Year last year. He's an incredible person and an incredibly talented individual as well. But so the three of us, Eric, Brian, and I, meet all the time to talk football, cars, and wealth management technology. Like we meet all the time, and Mustafa got pulled into the same discussions as well as
you ever want to do a virtual happy hour with those? I'm in. 100%.
Cool.
Yeah, it's like three hot topics, three obvious hot topics. Yeah.
Love to have you guys. And so, we just always talk about like pain points in wealth management. If you look back in like a history of time, like we literally helped digitize wealth management. I mean, my dad was like a pioneer in software, right? He had like floppy disk software that he was hawking to advisors back in the day. But Eric, Brian, Mustafa, like we all like helped that digital transformation, and really help folks migrate to the web. Well, what we found was like there's two important components of financial planners, like day in, day out workflow, that got kind of left behind, and those were in communication and compliance. And what we dug in and discovered more is that McKinsey says that the average service professional spends more than 12 hours a week writing emails. And I think about that myself. I was like, shoot, I think I spend more than 12 hours a day looking at my stupid like Gmail and Outlook, right? And then you think about like, okay, well, how good of an email do I send when I actually send an email? now put my like service professional hat on. I'm a regulated professional. Like, how do I even get back to somebody? So we had dozens of conversations with advisors. Like, how do you engage with this? Some advisors are like, shoot, I don't even send emails. I grew up in a wirehouse. They told me when I get an email, I pick up the phone. But you're on the other end of that. You're an investor that sends an email to an advisor. You just want a quick email back. You don't want a phone call all the time. So
yeah,
there's a huge pain point with this, like getting out informed, intelligent, private, and compliant responses rapidly. It's super difficult. And so Brian, Mustafa, Eric, and I really dug in on this front to produce Hamachi. And really quick, before I forget, I want to tell you like the name origin, if you don't mind.
Would love to. Yeah.
All right. So this is kind of fun. So when I first built the like a POC for Hamachi, this goes all the way back, back to like beginning of the year. It seems like it was longer than that. But I built it and I was like, I'm going to build it on top of Redtail. All right. Because that's Brian obviously built Redtail. I'm going to call this a Yellowtail. And so I was like, you know what?
I see where we're going now.
That's a little bit too close to home. So you know what? I'm going to be a little tongue in cheek and call it Hamachi. And so I presented it to the guy. Like, again, we were meeting on the regular, just like, whatever, cards and coffee or whatever. And I was like, what do you guys think of this Hamachi tool? And the both of them, first of all, they saw it and then they figured out the name and they're like, let's go. And we got the domain and here we are.
I feel like you were going to use a different phrasing right there, but yeah.
Yeah.
This isn't a PG podcast. You're welcome to phrase it how you want. Oh, so Max, wait, what's the origin? What's the origin of the
Mike did a great job of answering your question by reiterating what his business is and what it does. So I'm going to rewind and do that. So, and then I'll get to your question. Leah is a client data orchestration platform for wealth management. So our specialty is that we have built a set of AI-powered data extraction models that's able to get any data point out of any sort of statement, document, or PDF that comes into the four walls of a firm, stage the data, and then move it programmatically into the systems of record that firms need to serve clients and grow their business. So most of the time, that's their CRM or financial planning software. And for the more sophisticated firms, that means centralized data infrastructure, like a data lake or some other type of database like Snowflake that's managing your data at a firm level. And the other piece is we operate via API so that we can plug very directly into a more complex enterprise environment and even into other large technology companies and technology platforms that are serving the wealth management industry and really trying to address a lot of these same pain points that RIAs face as well. So that's us. Thank you, Mike, for reminding me how to start my answer to those.
So now how about the name?
Yeah. So the name is, it stands for Life Executive Assistant, Leah. Because I started out sort of on this more investor consumer facing side and the name stuck and the name has remained, although the actual product that we're building has evolved a lot. And
how long have you owned that domain?
For 2 years.
2 years. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people who just have like a stable of domains they've been accumulating with like little business ideas attached to them, and they keep on marinating on them. And every time it comes time to renew, it's like a reminder that you haven't acted on it. So I was just wondering if this is an example of that.
I feel like no matter what I do now, Leah is sort of like my entrepreneur identity. And there may be some other DBAs underneath of it, but it's always going to remain that Delaware C Corp that and whatever else is spun out of it, that is what will affect.
Both of you seem to be building, tools that are operating in the background. So, Mike, if I understand correctly, this effectively drafts emails into people's Outlook and Gmail. Are you also expecting people to go to a Hamachi site and use it as a SaaS tool, or is it really purely operating in the background?
Yeah. So email is one component of it, right?
Mm.
We look at ourselves as being, any message or communication you want to put out can be drafted using Hamachi. So that could be an email, that could be a white paper, that could be,
right.
Any type of script you want to put together for a podcast.
Does it push this content out as well, or is it just for like generating the copy and content?
Sorry, I missed that, James.
So like my question is it a tool? So when you're talking about being able to create different types of content, does it have the ability to send or distribute that content, or is it working with like your existing, whatever you're using for texting your clients, your email, etc.?
Yeah, so we do not send anything on behalf of anyone at this point. And really, like, the key to that, James, or the key reason why we do that is we always want an advisor in the loop. We have an excellent model that checks a million different ways to make sure that what we're drafting is compliant, but we still want the advisor to be in the loop to bless anything that would go out. We have our contents embedded in a sidebar inside of Outlook and Gmail, but we also have a chatbot that can be used in a browser. You can embed it as a widget inside of any advisor portal you might have, or you could embed it in your CRM. So that's something that's very lightweight. We have our API as well that folks can tap into. So we're completely abstracted from any workflows, if that's what you want to do.
I think this is what I find really interesting, because there's a lot of talk about, are people going to be, using their CRM? Are they going to be using AI overlays? Are note takers going to become the next CRMs? This is all a debate about which tab you're going to have open in your browser. And, I was talking to Joe about how, people are moving from 35 tabs open to 5 tabs open, which tabs are going to end up being concatenated into one app. And I think what you're talking about is a backend infrastructure that is agnostic. It'll basically appear in whatever you're using. We don't care if you use Outlook, you use your CRM. We can basically play well. And a browser extension is, I guess, the same idea, right? You're basically playing alongside whatever tabs people have open.
I don't even know if I would characterize, just to answer the question even on Mike's behalf or respond, I don't even know if I would characterize it as backend infrastructure. I would say it's more like you have a capability and value that you're providing, and then you are figuring out where to put that value and make it accessible in the context of the other tools and systems that an advisor or a firm is using. So it could be invisible, it could be more visible in different contexts, but I think the key point is that it's flexible and adapts to whatever the users or the customer's need actually is.
That's right. It's agnostic to the UI the user uses, but it still has UI associated with it, in that you're interacting with it in,
in some capacity.
Yeah,
it's not fully automated and not fully automated and invisible, but it's where you need it.
Yeah,
right. Like, we're not as concerned with owning the desktop, right? Like, we're more about augmenting and supporting your key workflows, especially focused around compliance and communication.
Mark,
I think that's very
I also
clever.
think this is really what the transformation is about. Because before, when you were selling any software product, you were selling screens. But with AI, you're selling work and jobs that are getting done for you. So the screens are not as necessary as they used to be. They aren't just 100% going away. It's not like a totally headless model where there's just robots in the background doing your work for you, but it's something in between. And I think that's amazing and scary at the same time.
I think this is a really interesting conversation, which is maybe not that there can't be multiple strategies, but what's the right strategy for a go-to-market product that's largely AI based now, right? Is it something that appears more headless in nature and is a little bit more invisible? Is it something that just shows up wherever you are? I imagine different firms are taking, I shouldn't say I imagine, I am clearly seeing different firms are taking very different approaches to how they think about having an advisor interact with these platforms, which ones are doing things invisibly in the background, whether they should have a really robust UI and kind of a place you go to do your work, or whether they want to, fade a little bit more. So I don't know if either of you guys have thoughts on that, but it's definitely something I give a lot of thought to, which is like, what makes the most sense?
The way one of the key elements I see, Mark, is that, I'm sorry, James, is that I'm always like, what's keeping me up at night is adoption, right? So I want to make sure that I'm living wherever an advisor is living. If they're in Outlook all day long for 12 hours a week, I want to have something right there in their sidebar that's helping them be more productive. I don't want to go build a new email client. Like that's an old school approach. And if they're in their Salesforce all day long, their CRM or Reddit, whatever, I'll go like embed a nice little widget inside of there, or help through an API to help people draft communications. I don't want to have to go create a new CRM platform. That's dying. I want to live where they're living from an adoption standpoint. The other key factor, in my opinion, for this bit is like, there's tremendous switching costs in getting advisors or anybody to move off of these big platforms. Like, could you imagine how much it would cost to move from Redtail or Salesforce to a new CRM? Like, you're talking, like, I don't mean like just like the cost of moving the data, like the switching.
There are a lot of people hoping that happens, though. A lot of people trying to make it happen.
You can ask John Rourke about that. I'm sure he's on your list as well.
Yeah. Well, he's now at the point of being someone people are moving off of, right? I don't know if which direction you were going with that, right? Because before he was someone people were adopting instead of their legacy, but now he is the legacy and he's like, people are moving off of it. But I mean, I would totally agree with you, Mike. It's amazing how much work people assume the advisor is willing to do to adopt a new tool. And you have to do something that is easy to adopt. It has to be the least amount of work. The thing that is the lowest amount of friction gets the most adoption, almost by definition. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was going to volunteer, like with I've been consulting. Mark and I don't talk a ton about our backgrounds on the show, but my background is largely consulting with wealth management firms and wealth techs. And over the years, I think I've come to evolve how I consult and recommend change to firms. And it used to be, here's sort of like the big changes you need to make, right? Here, we need to rip out this portfolio management platform to get what you want. We need to do this. And the appetite for that sort of disruption and cost is minimal. And you have to kind of find those prospects or those firms at the right time, right? And so it's a real big challenge to convince a firm that hasn't already decided to move off of any of those larger legacy platforms. And so now it's really, what are the changes we can make quickly? What can we get high ROI on as quickly as possible? And yeah, maybe we'll start looking at a 2-3 year transition plan, but what can we do right now? And I think that's why we saw such traction with note takers, like so easy to implement. Sign up now, use it in an hour, right? Like you're good to go.
And you also don't have to click on anything. It just shows up in the meeting, right? I think that's actually a really big reason why it worked, because people, once they signed up, they actually literally had to do nothing to actually get value out of it, right?
It's that friction. Right, yeah. So going back to what Mike said, right? Like just maybe phrasing it differently. When I think about adoption, I think about user friction. What can you do to reduce user friction so that they can get in and get value from the platform? And then how do you get them to use more of the platform as time goes on? Get better at using it. And that's where I think some firms do better than others, with like not just selling you a product and disappearing, but partnering with you. And that doesn't necessarily mean with human capital. It could just mean with their product and how their product engages with you and gives you tips and, maybe learns and does things like that. So I don't know. That's how I always think about adoption with these platforms.
Well, related to adoption, I was curious, both of you are obviously starting, on the launch pad, getting RIAs to adopt. What do you find works the best in terms of approaching RIAs? You have the typical playbook. You start with the small independent RIAs, you work your way into broker dealers, get approved, try to, basically get some lock-in by getting those approvals. Mike, you've obviously been around the block a few times here. is it having freemium products that people can try before they buy? Do you simply need to get on Zoom with key decision makers to, walk them through it? Do you have to go to these conferences and meet in person? There's no way around it. Is it just you need to have a certain amount of credibility in the industry and then things will flow? I find it interesting that, let's say Zox and Jump, these are two companies that were started by people not from the industry necessarily, right? So they were able to get adoption. I'm just curious what you guys have seen works well for a B2B AI startup.
Yeah, well, I guess all those things apply, right? Like, I think about like, why did I buy a Diet Coke today? Is it because there was a giant billboard on the 405, or is it because I saw a Super Bowl ad, or because I just, so like, how do you really get in there? Honestly, like the biggest boon for us so far has been our network, and my co-founders Brian and Eric have an incredible network, and as soon as Hamachi hit the wires, we've had just an amazing inbound pipeline established, which has been wonderful. But from there, you don't just do a demo and people open up their checkbooks, right? What we do is we get to be put on our James hat, and we get to be very consultative, right? And we sit down with these folks and we help them understand one, how our technology works, two, or maybe 1.A, how much time and effort we put into the compliance and privacy bits. I mean, every single message that goes through Hamachi, we redact all PII from it. We have a process that we're doing that's quite novel. And so an LLM never sees, what PII is, anything from an email address to a name to a address, God forbid a social security number, all that's stripped out, right? So just all these features, as we sit down with asset managers, broker dealers, TAMPs, RIAs, solo practitioners, aggregate, we're meeting with everybody, right? And we open up our playbook and we say, this is what we're focused on. We're creating these highly informed, incredibly private and compliant messages, and here's how we do it. Light bulbs are going off with these firms, and we're having incredible conversations and discussions with them. And
so is it really it's the messaging in the network, those conversations, you think?
It really is.
That's why they're buying the Diet Coke. So, by the way, every time you say Hamachi, I'm more and more likely to probably have sushi for dinner tonight. So it's almost guaranteed to happen at this point. I think it's in my head.
The name, we've been so lucky with the name, or serendipitous with the name. People have been hey, can I work for Hamachi? And then they laugh about it. They said, I can't believe I just said that. I'll work for sushi, kind of thing.
So Max, I was curious your perspective on getting adoption. Obviously, you're not coming at it from having the deep network that Mike and his founding team have. And so would love your take on that.
Yeah, I agree that you have to resonate in multiple ways to gain credibility with people who might not have heard of you before. But for us, it's been about focusing in on the segment of this very large and complex market where the appetite to solve these types of client data orchestration problems is the highest, and then being really clear about what we do and what we do not do, because there's a lot of choice out there about what vendors you can work with and what solutions you can adopt. So when we get into the details of exactly how we get data out of these unstructured locations and move it exactly to the places where it needs to go in a very controlled and reliable manner, and are not stepping on the toes of a lot of the other core tools and systems that these firms have really drawn a line in the sand and said, hey, this is something that we want to stick with at least for the foreseeable future, that's when we really start to get an intense amount of interest. And just one recent example, we're working on something in the compliance realm, and we were talking about a data set that we would end up generating as a result of the work that we're doing. And then our internal champion said that, Max, I've been talking to other people at our firm, and it turns out there are multiple stakeholders who want access to this data. The marketing team, the advisors, CSAs, and it's almost like it gathers its own set of steam once you really stick to the thing. And it's in school, if the teacher asks you a question and then asks you a follow-up question, you always want to have like an answer that shows how expansive your knowledge is about the world. But when you're trying to solve a specific set of problems, for me, it's been really illustrative and instructive to learn how to say, no, we do not do that.
Right.
And that keeps the conversation focused and actually moves us through a more productive sales cycle for both ends, not just for me, but ultimately for the people who we're trying to help.
I approach as somebody who sits on a lot of these vendor evaluation calls, being able to say clearly, here's what we do and don't do does make the conversation a lot easier. You don't always have to say yes, or we could do that, or here's a way. Yeah. That's not always the best way to close that.
Yeah. So that's been really helpful for.
I do wish people would be more open to freemium products. One thing I was a little concerned about at Advisor.ai is this concept that you should beware of freemium products or free products because you are the product or they may be training on the data. I just think it's bonkers because clearly no AI application at the scale we're talking about here has an LLM and is training on any data. And the business model is not an advertising-based model. So
yeah. Mark, I think it's like, I think that the question behind your question is how do you gain trust in a product? And one of the key parts of our playbook is that we do not operate without a very detailed project plan. And that has KPIs, it has check-in points, it has gating mechanisms to get from one stage to the next stage. And that just helps the people within the organizations that we're working with to know exactly where we are, what problems there are, and also how far we've come. And so whether there's freemium or free for a while or intro pricing or a lot of different, you can pick your poison that works with your product and your firm. But I think that sort of on-ramp of trust is something that everybody is still trying to wrap their head around. And that's the approach that we're taking that's been really helpful so far.
It makes a lot of sense. I can imagine, Mike, for your product, people could use a personal version that asks them if they really want to send that flame email to respond, or are you sure you want to say that? So there's a lot of different ways to build trust, depending on your area.
Well, it could be useful for disgruntled employees as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So many different use cases, so many instances where someone sent the wrong email. So I want to pivot to our best of LinkedIn segment. We normally, talk about something that came out in the last week or so on LinkedIn, either cringeworthy or exciting or both. I'll kick off with mine. So I wanted to talk a little bit about your former employer, Mike. So Reed posted about the Denali launch, and we actually saw a demo of it at the show. So Reed says, big news from Team Orion, something I could be more excited to share. We're officially announcing Orion Denali AI, our new enterprise intelligence layer designed to connect the dots across your tech stack, surfacing what matters most and giving advisors back what they're most short on, time and focus. Not just another tool, it's a new way of thinking about how we work. Natural language querying across your entire ecosystem, transparent advisor-controlled AI outputs, role-based dashboard with no-code configuration, a unified data catalog to power your best actions. And I was talking to the product team. Actually, that data catalog is a big piece of this. It feels like that's actually being able to abstract away all of your Orion data and be able to have an vector database, being able to look across it, ask questions is really crux. I also think it's instructive that this is not about AI over red tail. You can connect Salesforce, Wealthbox, any other CRM into this. It really is an AI layer that sits across everything. So
that's good to know. That was a question I had asked Reed. I wanted the answer to that one.
Yeah. So it's pretty awesome. I guess, Mike, would love to go to you. Do you have access to this? And how do you think about it?
Do I have access to Denali?
Yeah, that's right.
I do not have access to it, at least as of yet. I think it's a tremendous step for Orion. I think very highly of that entire organization, Reed included. Our time there didn't overlap exactly, but I've known him for many years. And so I hold him in very high regards. And I think like the strategy that Orion is embarking on, the ability to expose an advisor's data through a generative AI interface, it's very smart. It's something that we started to work on when I was there. And it's really cool to see them bring that home. Yeah, I'll leave it at that for now.
I'll jump in that I'm super excited about this because everything, kind of to the way Max phrased it earlier, like a lot of the AI tools are very front office facing. And so most of the AI tools so far are all focusing on the CRM data. And I'm excited to finally see one that is inclusive of the portfolio management data, the performance data, that's starting to really get a much broader picture of the overall relationship and the client. So I think that's really exciting to see. I mean, until now, you had pretty much just those front-end CRM integrated tools. You had, our friends over at Zero Basis Points with Arca that was doing some of this on the portfolio management side. Now they're creeping into the CRM side and more. But now seeing a major player like Orion get into this, I'm really curious how it's going to shake things up for a lot of the AI assistants, the note takers, things like that, and some of these AI CRMs.
One thing that I did not I think through a little bit more, like that I did see at Advice AI this week. In Vegas was, on Denali, they had like a BI component that was powered by Gen AI, and that could be really helpful, right? Because if you're trying to get forensics on your business beyond just having like a dashboard or dashboards, which are incredibly valuable in their own right, being able to talk to your BI tool, that's really impactful and helpful for all the stakeholders there.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to see the execution on that and how that works out. I'm gonna actually give a quick shout out to a business intelligence tool. Jack Sange has a platform called Vitals AI that I find really interesting, new to the market. So a lot of people probably don't know about it yet. I think he was over at XYPN kind of unveiling it in Austin a few weeks ago. But it is that business intelligence tool that connects to your portfolio management or CRM. And so I think that's an area that's been neglected. And when I got an overview of it a little while back, I was like, how did nobody build this already? Like this is a solution that we've needed for a long time. And so it'll be interesting to see a standalone solution like his, or how it competes with some of these more enterprise or all-in-one solutions. Because in the past, they're business intelligence dashboards, and hey, past performance not indicative of future, but their past business intelligence dashboards across the board have really been lacking and required a lot of customization. So this is a different approach. So I don't expect the same results, but it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out. But I'm excited about the BI. Max, what are your thoughts on Orion with their release of Denali?
I don't really have any thoughts to offer. I mean, to me, it's like they have to layer AI into their interface. Many firms rely on Orion for portfolio management, portfolio accounting. And if you leave that interface behind and don't make it better over time and adopt to new trends, then you'll wither on the vine. So to me, it's just strategically, it's a must do.
I'd agree with that. I am just surprised, and maybe more people are kind of building it quietly in the background, but I would have expected a few more AI forward announcements, or here's what we're working on from some of the other large players in the space.
AI overlay, effectively. That is one of the first scale AI overlays. A lot of startups are doing AI overlays, and this is like the first one from a scale player. And so I think there's an interesting question of how these AI overlays will pan out. Will people use this versus Claude? If MCPs are broadly available, will people prefer Claude? I see echoes of Claude in the UI. Are there reasons why someone would prefer something like this? I can see a lot of reasons why someone would. I'm really excited to see what happens when it launches. It's interesting that they're taking their time to launch. I was talking to the product team. They said they actually did not realize they could launch it so early. And I guess the UI came together far quicker than they expected. Reed put together the UI and effectively everything came together a lot faster. Apparently, the other piece is they were able to abstract away a lot of the Orion data via APIs, so they could actually be the Skunkworks team. I believe these are some Black Diamond folks that are working together that Reed had worked with before, so they could work a little faster. To our point about Pirates and Navy, they're operating a little more like pirates, which is making them move fast. So James, what about you on the LinkedIn front?
Yeah, sure. Let me pop it up here. So this one's, a little more, self-promoting, but
shameless.
So Mark actually suggested I talk about this one. I wrote an article a couple of weeks back about something I coined the relationship operating system, which I am so not tied to whatsoever. But we've been referring to it in various posts all over LinkedIn, the ROS. Essentially, I wrote an article saying, should we really still be kind of iterating on top of the traditional CRM design? Is it really time for something new? And I'm not hating on CRMs. I'm not saying they need to die or go away, but it was really kind of a call for our industry to think differently and not necessarily build on the traditional style of, contact, task, note, meeting, household, etc. With structured and unstructured data. With the way that we're able to leverage AI, there's got to be a better way in a new design. And I know there's some new entrants like Slant that are trying to attack this a little bit differently and also trying to expand the scope of what a CRM does and who uses it at an organization. Really trying to bridge the gap probably between like marketing CRM, sales CRM, and more of a traditional relationship-based CRM. So anyway, articles here. Would love for anybody who hasn't read it to read it. But really where I'm going is I think it's time to build something different. And especially because of the unstructured and structured data. And what I leaned on heavily is this being something that's centered a lot more around communications. So if you're a relationship management tool, you shouldn't just be recording the interactions. You should be an active participant in those relationships and the communication, and then finding opportunities. So that's really kind of where this whole article went. So Mark, I don't know if you have sort of questions or kind of a pivot from there, but
yeah, I mean, so we talked about this with Joe. We talked behind your back on the last podcast all about this. Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting to think about whether this is multiple applications or one application. I think I can imagine, a near future where people aren't updating their CRM manually at all anymore. The question is then, is that through an AI? You do that, Max? What is that?
I said we help with that.
Yeah, so right, you could be using Leah. I imagine that's a future we're going to get into regardless. It does beg the question whether you then need that CRM or whether you just need a database or whether, you need to pay for another SaaS tool.
Yeah, I think this gets at the essential question, which is what do these things actually, what purpose do they serve? I think that if you abstract the name of these things away, what CRMs do is they act as a data repository oftentimes. Not for everyone, but for many firms, they act as a workflow automation platform because they're where you manage the different processes in your firm, and in some cases you can automate them. And all CRMs provide that sort of functionality. And then they also are an interface into your data. And so if you can, if those needs will each continue to evolve in their own at their own pace and for different sized organizations. And I think for some firms, it will still make sense to have them packaged up into one entity. For others, certain elements of that are going to start to become less and less important. Like at a bigger firm, you may very well have some data infrastructure that replaces that piece of a CRM, and you might be using, Microsoft or Zapier, or roll your own automation. So you don't really need your CRM to do that for you. But I think that it's important to look at each of those lanes and how they're going to evolve to really come up with a hypothesis about it for different segments of the market.
Yeah, I think, Mike, maybe pivoting to you, a question would be, if Denali can read your email, your calendar, and have access to all your custodian data off of Orion, why use Redtail, right? Is there other structured data required? Is it a compliance requirement? Is there any reason, from a user perspective, you can prep for your meetings, you can run reports, you can do all sorts of things straight through a Denali type interface. So, you've been deep in this world for a while. I was wondering if you had a perspective on that.
Yeah. So, listen, I still think there's a place for things like workflow management, which your CRM can handle some of that, but that doesn't mean, like Max was pointing out, that like Zapier or something like, a system like that couldn't help with workflow automation. I'm not sure if there is like a really good future for CRMs as we know them today. With Hamachi, we're using HubSpot to like manage our CRM today.
Right.
And like just the other day,
excellent startup CRM.
I started to add like custom fields to it. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Like, why do I have to add a custom field for this? Why can't
Thank you. Yes.
Why can't I just say what this is and have it like use Max's, Leia to like store it in a way that I can go back, and when I have to ask a question, like work for all my clients that have this certain property, just pull it up. Like, why do I have to create a thinking custom field with a drop down? Like, come on.
I think that's the user friction, and that's the type of stuff that I'm talking about in that article. So I love that you brought that example up, because that's exactly it. The thing is, like, if you think about the note takers that we already have, right? You're having a conversation. In the conversation, your client happens to mention that your dog Scruffy had to go to the vet last week and he's getting old or whatever, and your daughter's going off to college, and your daughter Pam is going off to college, etc. And like, do I have to have names, custom fields to remember these personal things? Do I have to have like a important personal note sticky at the top of the CRM?
It's an artifact of the 90s, right? It's an artifact of the 90s where you had to like, get your database administrator to add something, right?
Right? Like in the meeting prep now, it's just like, help me prep for this. And part of it should be things that foster the personal relationship. Yeah. His dog was sick last quarter when you met with him last, right? His daughter was just going off to school. These are great things to start the conversation with. There's no need for a CRM field and a specific field in a database table to have that. There's just not.
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
That's kind of what I'm calling for here. A reimagining of what it is.
I went to an AWS demo day where Lightfield presented. Lightfield is also a next-gen CRM that just basically abstracts away absolutely everything that you'd normally have to do with a CRM just to be a UI. And you never have to actually add a single field or fill in any information. Does everything on the background. This is obviously not financial advisor, wealth tech focused, but it really shows what is possible if you just get rid of all of your mental models of what a CRM is and just start from scratch building for the modern age. And they basically say they get most of their people moving from HubSpot and Salesforce, because I think there's frustration with exactly what you're talking about, which I think is really, really interesting.
I think Mark, should we get into our rapid fire? Do a couple of quick questions?
Yeah, let's do that. And let's wrap it up.
Our time here.
Yeah.
So I'll jump in first. So Max, you can take this a slightly different direction, but what do you think is kind of the biggest misconception about AI document management or data extraction around documents?
I think the biggest misconception is that Copilot can do it well.
100%. Totally agree. That holds for absolutely everything, by the way. That holds for chat. It holds for note taking. Yeah, totally agree with that.
But it's great for problem discovery of like, what do I really need? I'll start with Copilot, and then I'll figure out where are some gaps. But that's just one.
What's super interesting, real quick, and I know we have to do rapid fire, but like what's super interesting is one, and it's a larger topic, but like, Copilot is largely OpenAI under the hood. And then now they're partnering with Claude for a number of different reasons. But Claude just released an Excel add-in. And so it'll be interesting it's just interesting to see how, like, despite how easy it is to incorporate, Copilot because it's already in your organization,
which is
it's largely gone through your compliance.
Which is part of
it's already there. Like,
that's part of
I still think they're going to lose plenty to Claude, ChatGPT, Perplexity, etc. Anyway,
totally agree. I want to ask Mike a rapid fire question. So, what percentage of advisor emails do you think will be AI drafted in 5 years? Even if the human is in the loop and reviewing it first.
Gosh, 5 years is a long time. Does it seem like it?
I was going to say we should shorten that runway.
Time.
Let's shorten it to 1 year or 2 years if it's easier.
Mark, no, it's fine. I would say 80-90% are going to be drafted by AI, but I do believe that 100% are going to be reviewed by AI for proactive checks, right?
And
to
really,
make
what's
sure
the difference?
Like, well, yeah, I think the difference is like someone giving hand on
it's just a sliding scale.
But if we're going out 5 years, my hot take is that email is going to be not gone, but a dying technology. I think that method of communication is on its way out.
James, I'm writing down all of your predictions, the death of the CRM and the death of email, and I will come back to you in 2030. It'll be my podcast, and you're going to be on there, and we're going to see that.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I feel like email has this like property where it's like baked into so many regulatory structures. It's immutable, which I think is like has a property that is, people like that because you can't go back and, in the case of going back for the record, it is like a default system of record. It's the ultimate system of record, right?
But it's a painful. I realize we got to wrap this up, but it's a painful. Yeah. It's not a good way to store that data, and it's painful to comb through, even with strong compliance tools.
Yeah.
There's obviously more efficient ways of doing it moving forward.
It might be like a communication protocol, but there's a different UI on top of it. That might be an interesting one.
James, I think you're a tech optimist and an evolution optimist.
I would agree with that. I think so.
You're right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, on that note, I want to thank both of you for coming on. Why don't we talk, how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about your products? Are they able to sign up for your products now? Do you have a free tier? Why don't you guys just each talk a little bit about that, starting with you, Max?
Find me on LinkedIn and book a demo on our website, getlia.io, to get in touch.
Perfect.
Fantastic. Mike?
Yeah, our website is Hamachi.ai. You can register for a free demo there. We do have a freemium version that you're welcome to use as long as you'd like. And we'd love to have a conversation beyond just doing a demo. We'd love to sit down with you and hear what you're going through, understand your business a little bit more, and have some fun building out some great tech with you guys.
Oh, cool. Mike, I'm going to schedule a demo with you guys. And if you could coordinate something in the evening, I'll be sure to bring my Hamachi sushi to it. We can do it that way. That'll be our virtual happy hour. We can talk cars and coffee after.
I'm in.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Appreciate you joining. That concludes another AI for Advisors.